They're hunting the paranormal with metal in their veins. No fear in their hearts as they break the chains of the supernatural. They will not rest until they face the demons, put them to the test.
What is up, everybody? It's Sunday. You're rolling with just a dog tonight, but that's okay. We can do this. It's top of the hour. It is 8 o'clock. Pacific Standard Time. Do you know where your cryptids are? Now, the reason why I always say that is because back in my day, 70s and 80s, you would have to get on a TV at 10 o'clock at night and say, it's 10 p.m., do you know where your children are? But we're not on that late, so. Wandering Spirits, hello there, how you doing? So, top of the hour, a little bit of news. We'd like to wish our friend Jade. She has graduated from real estate school. She is moving on. So she's going to be leaving us behind. We wish her all the best. We will miss her. Take care of yourself. And, yeah, we'll see you down the road. So yeah, you got me, the DOC, running it solo tonight. So we're going to try to get on through this a little bit. It is February. For those of you listening on Spotify, it's going to be in March because we're trying to re-upload all the backlog that we've got going on here. Anyway, February has been Abduction Month. We have talked about the Betty and Barney Hill case, which had a CIA document. So we've gone from highly credible to Travis Walton. A little bit of a conspiracy theory on that one, on what's going on. Then we went to Whitney Schreiber, which had a lot of undertones and possibilities that it didn't really happen. So tonight, we are going to wrap up Alien Abduction Month with a topic actually given to us by our number one fan, Tammy. Thanks for the assist on this one, Tam. It helped out a lot because I kind of came up empty. What we're going to talk about tonight is the Brooklyn Bridge abduction. Now a miniseries on Netflix. For those of you that have Netflix and wish to go and watch it. So we're going to jump in time. We've gone the 60s, we've gone the 70s, we've gone the early 80s, 85. Now we are in November 30th, 1989. We're going to wrap up one of the better decades, the 80s. And we're going to try to discuss this in a great and detailed depth charge. And yeah. All right. So I've got my notes here. Tammy has done a very fine job of putting together a nice little docket for us to follow. So the Brooklyn Bridge abduction is the story of Linda Napolitano. If I butcher that one, I am sorry. We know I am not good with pronouncing a lot of things. Forgive me, I'm an Oregonian. All right, a typical wife and mother of two children. She lived in a Manhattan 12th floor apartment with her family. About 3 a.m. on November 30th, 1989, Linda claims that three gray bipedal alien creatures with black eyes abducted her from her bedroom. In her story, she said that she was paralyzed and through a strange language, telepathic message, she was told to be quiet. Linda and the creatures were lifted by a blue beam of light to the UFO. So here is a picture of Linda. and an artist's rendition of her abduction. Now, like with all the other cases we've had this month, we've had a lot of beeping noises, clicking noises, little gray aliens, bipedal with black eyes. So, is she following the standard that we've all known to love at this point? Or is it a real abduction? All right, so Linda recalled an examination room where the aliens ran tests on her and inserted an inexplicable metallic device into her nose. After the series of examinations, she woke back up next to her husband in bed like nothing happened. Her first thought was that she dreamed the entire experience and she'll discover the lump in her nose, which seemed to be a thing. She underwent an x-ray test to prove that a lump in her nose was the result of an alien graft. The x-ray revealed that it did appear to house a small cylindrical object, but when she later agreed to undergo surgery to remove it, the object never appeared. Later, a throat and nose specialist allegedly examined Napolitano and found that the object was gone, but there was a buildup of cartilage that suggested something had been lodged there recently. So that seems to be one thing about abductees, is having a tracker, tracer implanted in them. So, again, I mean, we're in 89. Yep. November 1989. At this point, a lot of alien movies have come out. So, yeah, was there an actual abduction? Let's see here. Before we get to Skeptics Corner, I'm getting ahead of myself here. There were allegedly 23 witnesses to the event on that night. Witnesses recall seeing that Linda Napolitano emerging from an apartment building window 12 stories above the ground, accompanied by 3 small alien figures. Suspended within a blue beam of light, Linda and her captors were lifted into a large reddish-orange glowing UFO, which then moved off in the direction of the Brooklyn Bridge, hence the Brooklyn Bridge abduction. You know when he says I got to drink something a little bit stronger than cream soda. Bud Hopkins, an artist and ufologist with decades of experience researching alien phenomenon, recalled Napolitano. I can do this, guys. I swear I have not been drinking yet. There will be alcohol later, though. Most definitely. Contacted him shortly after her alleged abduction. However, his investigation really began in 1991 when he said he received a mysterious letter from a pair of security guards. In their letter, the men claimed that on the night of November 30th, 1989, they had been parked under FDR Drive when they saw 3 alien figures and a woman in a white nightgown floating out of the apartment window and into a UFO. The security guards, who called themselves Richard and Dan, said they can't live with ourselves for not helping the woman, according to the Daily Mail. In 1996, Hopkins published a book about Linda's story titled Witnessed. And soon Linda was making headlines. According to Bud Hopkins, nearly 24 people had witnessed the event. Hopkins included their accounts in his book, though he used pseudonyms for most of those involved, including Linda herself, whom he called Linda Cortile. So, I'll finish up this next thing and then we'll go into a little bit more stuff. The housewife story contained bizarre elements that went beyond the 1989 abduction. A year later, Napolitano alerted Hopkins that she was being harassed by 2 men named Dan and Richard, who had witnessed the event from an official car in which they were transporting none other than Secretary General of the United Nations, Javier Perez de Salioa. Hopkins, who never saw them himself, gave credence to the letters she received signed in their name and that of the diplomat. The diplomat later refuted any affiliation with the abduction, saying in a statement to PBS that the allegations were completely false. So, was there a sighting? Did these people actually harass her? Were they not just men in black? Inquiring minds would like to know. Meanwhile, more people were contacting Hopkins with their accounts of the alleged abduction, and their stories seemed to match Napolitano's. To some alien enthusiasts, the sheer number of witnesses proves that something really did happen that night. However, critics have pointed out that most of these witnesses refuse to give interviews or to identify themselves, which kind of does not help matters a lot. So here's another picture of Linda and her abduction. Meanwhile, given the lack of concrete evidence, even some of the most devoted believers in UFOs believe Linda's story to be a hoax. Now, before I move on, we'll kind of go into a little bit of where she was going. So, Linda was interviewed by Oprah, Geraldo, Ricky Lake. I mean, she was interviewed by everybody, news channels, daytime TV. And she stuck to her story about what had happened. Now, a lot of people laughed at her. And when she was with this other group, Bud Hopkins, Bud Hopkins was doing regression therapy. He had kind of opened up his apartment in New York. Everybody come in that you've been abducted. We'll do a past life regression. We'll go over everything. So after a while, Bud Hopkins and all his people that were witnesses were appearing on the same shows. And a lot of people were laughing at him because, hey, that's kind of what happens. You get abducted. You come out with it. You don't really want to make a lot of money. You don't want a lot of fame. You just kind of want it to disappear. So, Betty and Barney Hill, for example, they wanted nothing to do with the fame. They wanted nothing to do with the fortune. They just wanted to sit out for a bit. Barney Hill basically just did not want anything to do with the fame and the popularity of it. He just wanted to put it behind him. Travis Walton, he does a lot of circuits and everything, mostly because of the fact that he wants to clear his name and say, listen, this really happened. Whitney Schreiber, on the other hand, like we covered last week, he's an author. He writes horror books. He's kind of made a bigger deal out of it than anybody else. Now, Linda hasn't really written any books or anything. There is the 3-part Netflix docuseries called The Manhattan Alien Abduction, where Netflix they interviewed her because of the fact that she was a big news story in 1989. So, if you got Netflix, try to watch this thing. It's kind of interesting because you're getting a lot of different takes on the situation and a lot of what's going on. So the Manhattan Alien Abduction also includes commentary from one of her most prominent detractors, Carol Rainey, who worked until her death in 2023 to refute Linda's abduction narrative. Rainey goes on the record in the documentary saying, Linda made it up, unquote. Rainey in the documentary called Linda's accounts of these men into question. She argued Linda, I'm not going to try to say the last name again. It's Italian. I'm not Italian. I'm going to just mess it up every single time. Called Linda's accounts of these men into question. She argued Linda wrote the letters from them herself. Rainey worked with a forensic expert to prove the handwriting between letters from her and from the men were virtually identical. So we've got a little bit of a conspiracy coming on. Well, it just turns into a big old soap opera. According to Linda, it is. The Manhattan Alien Abduction docuseries takes a more skeptical approach as it presents her story. However, or at the very least, it presents both Linda's side of the story and that of Carol Rainey, who claims Linda made it up. It's important to note that Rainey's ex-husband, Bud Hopkins, believed Linda completely in his book Witness, True Story of the Brooklyn Bridge Abduction, very much support Linda's theory of what happened on the night of her abduction. So if you watch the docuseries, what you have is the wife. You've got Carol, who goes through it, and she's basically saying that, yeah, Linda is very photogenic. She's very mugs for the camera. She's always got her hair done, her makeup on. She just seems to be putting on an act for the camera. Because Carol was originally a filmmaker before she married Ben, and then they got into the UFO thing. The already complex story became more entangled just a few days before the documentary's release, when Linda and others sued Netflix, the filmmakers and the film producers, and the estate of Rainey for fraud, defamation, and other claims, and attempted to stop the release of the documentary. Over the years, Linda has stuck to her story even as people dismissed her as crazy. Linda sued Netflix days ahead of the product's release, alleging that it defames her, paints her in an unflattering light, and steals the work of an author who first wrote about her story more than 20 years ago, per Forbes. In the end, the truth behind the Manhattan alien abduction is left for viewers to decide, but the facts are as follows. The reason Linda's case was always so strong was that Hopkins' book claimed 23 witnesses came forward to confirm having seen her floating through the sky on the night of November 30th, 1989. If I was hallucinating, Linda told Vanity Fair in a 2013 interview, then the witnesses saw my hallucination. That sounds crazier than the whole abduction phenomenon. Linda argues that Netflix portrayed her as a fabulist and that she was smeared as a liar by a late ufologist's scorned ex-wife. So, yeah, Bud and Carol, it was not a good divorce. It was not a friendly divorce. And if Linda's got a credible bit going on, then, you know, what's the possibility of Carol just maybe being a little bit more deterred by Linda getting more attention from the husband? You know, that's always kind of a thing right there that could be going on. So is it a case of jealousy between that they're going to go ahead and just try to defame her as quickly as possible because she got in between a husband and a wife? It could be possible. So some of the comments from the movie watchers, the Napolitano story is not really about aliens or the possibility of aliens, etc. It's about this woman who definitely fabricating the entire thing. That's what the series is about. Posing the possibility of a lonely housewife needing attention so badly that she makes up a wild alien abduction story because her life got boring. I remember watching Bud Hopkins present this case at a conference in Sydney in the 1990s. I took along my copy of Missing Time and Bud Hopkins inscribed it for me. However, there are still questions about this case, such as Janet Kimball, an independent witness crossing Brooklyn Bridge, sent Hopkins a bunch of color drawings of the scene showing Linda and the beings raising in a beam toward a UFO. Carol Rainier, Bud's former wife, points out that the writing on the envelope containing the drawings is distinctive and suspiciously like Linda's own writing. So that was a few of the comments that was on the movie itself. So this would be one of those cases of exactly what is going on. Was she really abducted? Anyone that's happened to have seen a Netflix show, if you would like to chime in a little bit and maybe give your 2 cents. Sorry, I've got to check on the dog. All right, so yeah, out of all the alien abduction cases that we've handled and we've taken care of, is Linda basically trying to do what she has to do to get a bit of popularity? Or is this simply a bitter wife, if you've seen the show, that Carol does? I mean, Carol spends, the opening of the entire show is Carol and Linda basically looking at the camera and basically calling each other out for their actions. So I know the show's not that great with just me running it. It's better with a back and forth. We'll be honest with that one. Chaos ensues, and the fans go quiet. So what we have is we've got the Greys, we've got the beam of light that Travis Walton talked about, we've got the Greys that a lot of other people have talked about, we've got the alien implants, which we did not cover it in Alien Abduction Month. It might be a whole nother month down the road of aliens and everything else. So currently Linda is still married to her husband. We got Bridget Murray joining in. Thanks, Bridget, for joining in. You got kind of a quiet night tonight. I'm trying my best on this one. I guess we can talk about some of the aftermath. Bud Hopkins died August 21st, 2011 from cancer. So currently, Linda is still living in Manhattan, still married, still trying to get herself, I wouldn't say so much cleared, but having people maybe believe her a little bit that this really did happen. I mean, we could probably do a little Skeptic's Corner, because I don't know exactly how long of a show this is going to be, because I'm already kind of running out of stuff here. I'm doing my best, people. So we've got over 20 witnesses claiming to have seen her being kidnapped, taken up in the spaceship, but none of these witnesses are verified. So if this is a hoax, it's a very well thought out hoax. If you're going to get Bud to actually, who's a ufologist, to believe everything and to go along with everything and to verify everything. And you got 20 people coming out of the woodwork saying, yeah, we did it, but we're not verifying, we're not giving you our name. We've got two men who have seen, two security officers who are writing letters saying that, yeah, we saw this, but then we have the consulate basically denying it. Here's a quote from Carol Rainey. Quote, Bud cherry-picked compelling details but ignored anything that presented difficult questions, unquote, she claimed in the docuseries. So here's a little bit more background stuff on Linda. A few months before the alleged Manhattan alien abduction, she wrote to Hopkins about a different encounter she said happened 13 years prior. Linda said she dreamt she was levitating and woke up with a nosebleed in her first alleged alien encounter. Afterwards, she claimed to find a strange bump, which was the object in the nose. So, I mean, it sounds like she's been visited quite often. So Carol Rainey, the ex-wife, a filmmaker, worked to debunk Linda's abduction story until she died in 2023. Rainey started having doubts when Hopkins hypnotized the housewife to recover memories of her supposed encounter. Rainey, who had seen Hopkins hypnotize several people whose work, believed Linda didn't act the way most people do while under hypnosis. Quote, I felt that Bud had lost his objectivity, unquote, Rainey said in the Manhattan alien abduction. Quote, I don't know if it was thorough, though Linda case and earlier than that. I couldn't respect what I heard him do to people who were vulnerable, very vulnerable. I had to try to protect other people from being tormented this way, unquote. She continued, quote, I was sick. I was literally sick of the whole business, and the only thing I could think of was to speak out about it, unquote. Hopkins died in 2011. Rainey died in 2023. So again, here's another thing we can bring up. We can discuss a little bit about that. Bud Hopkins was a very big name at the time in the UFO culture. So if you wanted to get your name out there and be associated with a hoax, then you'd want to go to Bud and get Bud to believe your story. I'm trying to see things on both sides of the avenue here. I think James at this point would be about 6 Jack and Cokes deep and be saying, yeah, I don't believe any of this. In Witness, Hopkins wrote that at around 3 a.m. on November 30th, 1989, Linda woke up to find a, quote, diminutive, large-headed figure with enormous black eyes, unquote, coming toward her. The UFO researcher said he used hypnotic regression to help her remember more details, like allegedly being levitated in a brilliant bluish-white beam of light. Linda alleged that once inside a UFO, she underwent a series of quasi-medical procedures for 2 hours before being returned home. Quote, there were creatures around me and they were examining my stomach, unquote, she claims. Quote, one of them came after me with a needle the length of a turkey baster. I didn't want to believe that I was a lab rat being experimented on, but after a while, I just couldn't deny it anymore, unquote. Linda also claimed that years after the incident, the aliens continued to target her family and give them nosebleeds. So, right there, we've got her continue. Oh, now I always try to play both sides. I try to play a devil's advocate on this one. And normally I got somebody to do the skeptic's devil's advocate on this one, but James is out at dinner, hopefully having a Jack and Coke for me. What we've got is Linda. I am not saying her last name. I'm not trying to butcher it again. She's coming out. She's saying I was abducted by aliens. 20 people witnessed it. A while before that, 2 men saw it. They were guarding a diplomat, and then everybody got a hold of the right person saying, hey, this really happened. Then she gets a hold of Bud. Again, he's the big name at the time. So I'm going to put it out to the viewing audience right now. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Do you believe that Linda really was abducted? Or claim the fame? Well, just those of you that can actually write in the comments at the moment, or YouTube later on down the road, just put in a word if you think abducted, hoax. And we'll leave that open for a few minutes. Now, I find it interesting the fact that Linda, Bud's wife, had such a huge falling out. You really got to watch the Netflix series, because it literally is 2 people going at each other. I've got 2 hoaxes in the chat right now. The thing is, Linda put on such a convincing thing that Bud believed her over everybody else. So normally about now we'd have James kind of doing a little breakdown on things. So we got hoaxes. I'm going to put in my 2 cents. It's going to be a short show tonight, because I am really buttoned up on nothing. This works better as a 2-man show. If Linda was actually abducted, this does raise questions. Out of all the other abduction cases that we've covered, Betty and Bernie Hill, believable, CIA papers out on it. Travis Walton, I believe something did happen to that man. Whitley Strieber, I think he has just made it all up. Linda Napolitano, watching the documentary, part of me wants to say that this really happened, but if there were 20 people that tried to come out, I think those 20 people needed to come out and just admit to it and just say that, yeah, this has happened, we saw this, go on records with it. Try to give Linda a little bit more story, but the fact that, is she writing these own letters and making up her own hoax as she goes along? I'm leaning more towards this was a case of a New York City, a Manhattan housewife who saw what fame and abduction does for you. And I think maybe she went along and did as much hoaxing as she could to make it believable. Now, if these other people 30 years later came out and said, yeah, you know, we actually did see her, this actually did happen, I think I'd be more apt to change my view. But as Sammy says in the chat, the story had a lot of craziness. You know what? It did have a lot of craziness. I mean, we've got technically 2 movies. Linda Napolitano, the alien abduction of the century in 2022. And then we've got the Netflix movie that came out last year. So she might be making a little bit of money on the side there. Plus, she had a book written about her. She didn't write a book, but Bud did, and Bud wrote a lot of books. And then he was taking all the abductees on the shows and everything. So, yeah. I'm sorry, people. I am really not a one-man show. We're going to go ahead and we're going to wrap it up because I got nothing more. I don't think she was authentic. I think there were some issues. Tammy says, I am doing a great job. Yeah, well, I'm trying. We're at 37 minutes. It's all right if we end a little early. So, on the docket. So, we're going to get off of alien abductions. Moving forward, moving on. We got bigger things coming up. March, Oregon. We're going to cover Oregon cryptids, ghosts, conspiracies. Will be coming to you live from the Oregon Ghost Conference on the final Sunday. The show will actually be earlier, not at 8 o'clock. So we probably won't ask where your cryptids are, because it'll be during the daylight hours, and I'll be speaking at 1 p.m. So I think we're probably going to go live around 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll run for, I don't know, it might be a long show. It'll definitely be 2 hours, might be 3. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. We're also going to try and get some backstage 5-minute interviews with all of the guests that are there. See if they'll actually want to do that. Then that'll be in an edited video we put out later. It'll be likes of Clyde Lewis, Jeremy Scott, if they're all, mind you, if these guys are up for it, we'll try and do a 5-minute interview. Till then, I'm the Doc. James is out to dinner, and I hope to God he's having a Jack and Coke, because I think I'm going to have to go make me a whiskey sour or something. Yeah. We will see you next Sunday when we start Oregon. It should be pretty entertaining. So we will see everybody next Sunday, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Times. Be sure to hug your cryptids. Have a good night, everyone. Bye.